And here to give us more insight on what's happening in the political world is Republican strategist and constitutional law analyst Dr. Christopher Metzler. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. My pleasure. How are you?
Good, good. And so, of course, we have some questions for you. The Biden administration
Sure.
has said reforming immigration laws is, of course, a top priority. How does this differ from the previous administration?
Well, in the previous administration, there was no attempt really to substantively reform immigration. Instead, there was a focus on a so-called wall that was never built and was never going to be built. While I disagree with some of the components, I cannot disagree that this is an attempt to reform immigration comprehensively. And so I do give the president credit for being able to do that. The devil, of course, are in the details.
hmm And of course, you just mentioned one of the major actions associated with the Trump administration was the effort to build a wall on the Mexican border. In your opinion, what should happen to the wall now that Trump is no longer in office?
Well, first of all, there was never significant portions of the wall built to begin with. Secondly, I think this attempt to wall off America is simply a silly attempt. There are also issues of eminent domain, and there are just certain portions of the wall. You cannot simply build a wall in the middle of the Rio Grande. That's just not geographically possible. So what's there is there. I do think, however, that there has to be an increased need for border security. And that could include some electronic needs as well. But at this point, I think we have to focus on reforming immigration rather than sloganeering, which is what was done in the last administration.
And we're going to switch gears here. President Biden has been celebrated for promising to wipe out student loans. How much debt, if any, should get wiped out in your opinion?
Student loans is one of those things. As someone who had quite a bit of debt myself, this idea of wiping out student loans, I just don't think should be done. Now, I do agree that as it relates to community colleges, the issue becomes whether or not we are looking at what rate should community colleges be free. I think that is something that needs to occur. Wiping out student loans, I simply think, is not viable. I think the costs are too high. And I think it basically says to folks, go to school for as long as you can and we'll take care of your debt. I fundamentally don't believe in that.
And what do you think that would do to the economy?
Oh, I think it will tank the economy because at what point? I mean, we're talking student loans? Are we talking undergrad? Are we talking grad? Are we talking post grad? If people want to pursue those, I think it's important for them to be able to fund it. And so I think that would be a disastrous effort for the economy.
And we're going to switch on over to the Big Apple. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has come under fire from all sides after admitting at least some responsibility in withholding data on coronavirus. And that's related to deaths in the state's nursing homes. What's your reaction to this? I mean, should we be concerned?
We should absolutely be concerned. I mean, there are many people who gave the governor credit. He got, I believe, an Emmy or some award for having courage, if you will. We're now finding out that, in fact, it was not courageous. It was a cover-up. My colleague, Letitia James, who is the Attorney General of New York, she is looking into it. And it is for all politicians of all stripes. We need to give folks the data. Let us know what's happening rather than attempting to cover it up. Will it kill him politically? We'll see. But it's more important than politics. We're talking about numbers, and we're talking about the fact that in fact, he supposedly had this under control, which it turns out he did not. So I absolutely think the investigation should continue into his efforts or lack thereof in this case.
And of course, I'm sure you've seen this. It's been all over social media within the last 24 hours. Political figure Ted Cruz is also under fire this morning, flying to Cancun, Mexico, as a winter disaster hit his home state and left millions without power or water. Can you give us your take on this? Should he be facing this backlash? I mean, how do you let your constituents suffer from something like this?
Yeah, he absolutely should rather face backlash. Remember, this is the same Ted Cruz who was part of lying about the election and about the fact that the former president had won. This is extremely hypocritical. He's going to Cancun. There's all of this going on. His constituents, the people he represents, are suffering while he is on vacation. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. But see, this is part of the problem in Washington with politicians on all sides, which is there are one set of rules for them, and there are another set of rules for everyone else. Now, some of my colleagues have said, oh, give him a break. He's not the governor. No, I'm not saying that he's the governor. I'm saying that his behavior is simply not acceptable. If this were a Democrat, there would in fact be unsustained backlash by Republicans. We cannot have it both ways.
At all. I mean, it definitely speaks a lot as to the fact that some people are really suffering, have no drinking water, have to wait in line for water, and yet he's out on a plane, maybe under some sunshine.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. This is what people are looking and saying. This hypocrisy has got to stop. We are suffering. The people of his home state are saying, well, you're vacationing it. It kind of reminds me of what Chris Christie did back in the day as well. And it's time for us to hold politicians accountable, period, end of discussion.
Mm-hmm.